What's going on there, YouTube? Welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, so we're going to continue our coverage over the X-Men, but now we pick up with some good old Cable. And guys, we're going to cover Cable issue number 12, 13, and 14. This is a three-part story arc called Fear and Loathing. Now, here's the thing. The first chapter doesn't really go with the other two chapters, but it's still technically part of the same story arc. And you see what I mean as we go through today's video. We're also seeing Cable possibly getting another love interest, somebody who had a past with Cyclops and also Magneto. Yeah, you heard that right. But let's go ahead and dive into today's video. And so as we dive into Cable issue number 12, we do pick up with Lee Forrester. Now, Lee Forrester is really important in the world of X-Men comics. Let me explain why. You see, she first appeared in Uncanny X-Men issue number 143. Now, originally, she was a new love interest for Scott Summers right after the Dark Phoenix saga. It kind of seemed like maybe, just maybe, she'll be able to replace Jean in Cyclops' heart. But as we all know, that did not work out at all. Now, soon after that, she also had gotten with Magneto. But just like Scott Summers, that also did not work out for her either. And so she's been single for a good while now in Marvel Comics. Now, for Lee, she's also a captain of her own boat. And so as we dive into issue number 12, we see that someone had killed off her crew, but right now trying to kill her on her own boat. And that would be the character known as Senyaka. Now, Senyaka had died back in Uncanny X-Men issue number 304 by the hands of Magneto. And the reason why, because for Senyaka and some of the acolytes, they went out of their way to kill off a bunch of innocent humans for no actual good reason. As we all know, for the acolytes, they don't like the humans at all. But for Magneto, their god, he said, listen, we don't kill humans who did nothing wrong towards the mutant race. And so because of that, you have Magneto crush the body of Senyaka. And so we were left to believe that he had died back then. But apparently, he is alive again. Now, I will explain how he came back to life here in a moment. But right now, we see him trying to kill off Lee Forrester. Now, she is able to get off the boat just in time before he had the ability to kill her. Now, luckily for Lee Forrester, she was then pulled out of the water by Cable. Now, for Cable, the only reason why he's here right now, because for Lee Forrester, she sent out a signal for help, and Cable was able to answer the call, and he came in time to help her out. But for Cable, he wants to know what in the world is going on here. Who are you trying to get away from? And then in that exact moment, he's then confronted by Senyaka. Now for Cable, he knows that Senyaka should be dead because again, his body was crushed back in Uncanny X-Men 304 by the hands of Magneto. And so you have Senyaka tell Cable how in the world was he able to come back to life again. And so we learn here that for Senyaka, what happened was after you had Magneto killed him off, his body was transported over to a S.H.I.E.L.D. base. The problem is one of the scientists at S.H.I.E.L.D. had touched the body of Senyaka. You see, for Senyaka, he has the ability of life absorption. And so he drained the life energy from that scientist and also two other S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. And so that's how he was able to come back to life again, just like that. But as we jump back over to the present day, we do learn why Senyaka is trying to chase down Lee Forrester for, because she was somebody that was close to Magneto. You see, for Senyaka, he wants to get revenge against Magneto, and the best way to do that is to go after somebody that he cared for in the past, like Lee Forrester. Now, we also get reminded here that for Senyaka, he has these psionic whips that release bioelectricity that can allow him to paralyze somebody. Like, for example, Cable, because at first, Cable thought he should be able to take down Senyaka, but unfortunately, he does get shocked and paralyzed. And so you have Lee Forrester being able to knock out Senyaka, grab Cable, and get the heck out of there before Senyaka can kill them off. But then that leads us into the moment where we might see Cable and also Lee Forrester become possibly a couple. And the reason why I'm saying that because you have Lee Forrester begin to ask Cable about Magneto, the whole idea of him joining the Acolytes, a group of people who went out of their way to target humans to kill them off. Because to Lee, she can't believe that Magneto would do that. And you have Cable say, no, he did. Now, to Lee Forrester, she believed that Magneto was just a noble guy, a great gentle man. The problem is she don't know the true side of Magneto is what Cable is trying to say. Now, while you have the two talking to one another, as she talks to Cable, she kind of realized that Cable kind of reminds her of Magneto. And so that begins the possibility of these two characters, could get together down the road. Now, while you have the two characters talking to one another, they're then confronted once again by Senyaka. Now, for Senyaka, he believes that now everything should be easier for him. And the only reason why, because to him, Cable is no longer a big threat. Cable can't move. He's currently paralyzed. But on top of that, without his weapons, Cable is nothing. And so you have Senyaka try to kill off Lee Forrester. But the problem is almost everyone forgets about this. Cable has the ability of telekinesis. And so he is then able to use that ability to grab some sharp wooden pieces and throw them right at Senyaka's body, killing him in that exact moment. And so now for Lee and Cable, they are now able to get away from Senyaka. But here comes the big problem. You see, for Cable, he has this piece of technology that allows him to body slide. Body slide means that Cable can teleport almost anywhere across the world. The problem is he has to be connected to the professor, his AI system. You see, when Senyaka shocked him earlier, he had cut off that connection. And so right now, Cable cannot body slide like he used to. So him and Lee must walk all the way back over to a nearby town. Unfortunately, it's going to be a very long walk for them. And so as we dive into part 2, we can now officially say this begins the actual story being told to us in this 3-part story arc, because part 1 seemed a tad bit random, but part 2 and 3 go perfectly together. Either way, we do pick up with Cable and also Lee trying their best to get away from a tornado. Now, unfortunately, they're trying to achieve that goal by running away, which honestly is not a great idea, but they have no choice. And so while they're trying to get away, you have Cable fall in some quicksand. And so with him now being in quicksand, you have Lee trying her best to figure out how in the world is she going to be able to help Cable get out of the quicksand. Now, unfortunately, almost everything she tries to do is just not working. But luckily for Cable, he has his telekinesis. And honestly, it does work. But also, this is a huge moment. And the reason why, because for Cable, he has not moved something so big before until now. And so for him trying to move himself, it took a lot of energy out of him. But he had no choice, because if he did not do that, he would have died in that quicksand. After all of that, you have Cable and Lee continue on to hopefully find somewhere to stay for the night. Now, they do find a cabin, and they're kind of wondering at first if anybody owns the cabin. And of course, it is owned by an old man known as Desmond. Now, at first, he looks like an innocent man, but honestly, this dude is very creepy. Things go south very quickly here, y'all, because after a while, you didn't have the old man call Cable by his real name. And the same goes for Lee as well. But for Cable, he's wondering how in the world does this old man know his real name? And then out of nowhere, you have the old man begin to play mind games on Cable. You see, for Cable, he's being forced right now to relive one of the worst moments of his life, where he had to watch his wife and his son basically die all in one day. And so for Cable, it's pretty hard to relive this kind of moment. But he's also believing right now that he has been given a second chance to hopefully save them. But unfortunately, he cannot. Now, you do have Lee being able to bring Cable back into reality. But right after you have Cable being able to come back to reality, you then have somebody else enter the cabin, and that would be Sonny. Now, we have no idea who Sonny is, but apparently he has close ties to the old man. Now, for Sonny, he kind of realized that Cable seems somewhat tired, and so he tells Lee, why not go ahead and take him upstairs so that he can rest? Now, we do get another example here of the possibility of Cable and Lee could get together down the road, because she calls him cute when she puts him in bed and she walks away to go to her own bedroom to rest for the night. But as soon as she's able to get to her bedroom, things get crazier for her as well, because then out of nowhere, she is confronted by her father. And the reason why this is a problem, because her father died a while back. Now we're kind of left to believe that he had committed suicide, but either way, he's here right now, right in front of her. But she says, there's no way, you are dead. He says, you're right, I am dead. I die by a bullet. And so you have this fake version of her father get a gun out and shoot himself right in the head, right in front of her. And so you didn't have her run out of the house screaming for her life, but then she is confronted by Cyclops. Now remember, she used to date Cyclops, but right after dating Cyclops, she also dated Magneto, and he appears as well. But you didn't have Magneto go out of his way to kill off Cyclops. And that kind of shows her like, hey, listen, Magneto is no longer that good guy you knew him as. He is completely evil. He is pretty wild right now. But for Lee, this is a true nightmare. And so she begins to scream like no other. Now for Cable, he hears Lee screaming and he wants to go help her. But the problem is, as soon as he opens up that door, he's then confronted by these images of different ladies who were kind of there for him over the years, like the Ascani, the one who took him into the future, Madeline Pryor, his actual mother, Jean Grey, his adoptive mother, Rachel Summers, his sister somewhat, and then the mother Ascani. Now, that last one, we have not learned everything about her just yet, but sooner or later, we're going to. But either way, you didn't have Cable come back to reality again because of Lee. But right after he's able to come back to reality, once again, his mind begins to play tricks on him, where now he's dressed like Strife, his evil clone, and around him are dead bodies of all the members of X-Force, people that he truly cares for. Now for Desmond, the old man, he does reappear, and of course, giving off that creepy vibe. We're kind of left wondering, who is this old man? And so we kind of find out, it is Despair. Now, Despair is an old Marvel character. Now, he is a Fear Lord. And I kind of want to sit down and cover the actual origin of Despair. But for us to do that, we got to sit down and cover some Doctor Strange. And honestly, I might do that very soon as well. But for Despair, he is a Fear Lord. And he feeds off the negative emotion energy that people put off. So like being sad, angry, or despair. He feeds off those types of energy. And so with Despair, what he usually does is he makes you relive the worst moments of your life by using illusions like he did earlier to Cable and Lee to feed off their negative energy. Now, the last time we saw him, he fought against Rachel Summers, and he lost that battle. She kicked his butt, but because of that battle, he realized that the X-Men and Cable, they hold on to a lot of raw negative emotion energy that he can feed off of. And so that's his goal right now, to continue to feed off that negative energy that Cable and Lee are currently holding. Now, you have Lee being able to help Cable fight through Despair's illusions by kissing him, by bringing him back into reality. And so because of that, he's no longer able to affect Cable and Lee. And so with that happening, he is now quickly removed from the storyline as the main bad guy. But then you have another bad guy step in to be the main bad guy of the storyline. and that would be Belasco. Now, we haven't talked about this character in a very long time. I mean, a very, very long time. Now, the last time we have talked about this character was back in, I want to say, the Magic miniseries that came out in the early or late 1980s. You see, for Belasco, he was the original ruler of Limbo until he was defeated by Ileana, the younger sister of Colossus. You see, back in the 1970s, there was a storyline where Ileana was pulled into Limbo. Now, time moves differently in Limbo. And so while she was there for like years on years, back on Earth, it was only like 10 seconds. So for Colossus, he watched his young sister get pulled away and then come back out as a teenager. Now, like I said, while she was gone, she was being trained by Belasco in Limbo to be his apprentice. But then sooner or later, she overthrown him and became the ruler of Limbo. With her becoming the ruler of Limbo, it didn't last that long. Matter of fact, she lost that role of ruler of Limbo to another character, and that would be Sim. Now, that all led into X-Men Inferno that involved Madeline Pryor, the mother to Cable. And that would be very important. But for right now, let's go ahead and jump back into the story. Because as we dive into the final chapter, it's really more of Belasco fighting against despair. And the reason why, because Belasco needs to use Cable for something special. But for despair, he's not done yet. He's all like, dude, I still want to have some fun with Cable and also Lee. But you have Belasco say, nah, bruh, it's my turn now. Now, for Cable and also Lee, they're trying their best to get away. Unfortunately, when they walk through a door, they go to somewhere like Limbo or possibly hell. They have no idea where. But either way, they turn around and they see Despair and Belasco continue to fight against one another until you have Belasco say, you know what, I'm done, and sends Despair away. Now, for Cable, he wants to know what the heck is going on here. Why in the world does Belasco want him? And this brings back X-Men Inferno. So like I said earlier, when it came to X-Men Inferno, you had Sim wanting to bring over the forces of Limbo over to Earth by using a portal. The problem was that portal, that barrier was closed. And so you had a few other characters grab some powerful human babies and use them as a ritual to open up that portal. Now, you had our heroes being able to close that portal down. The problem was right after that, you had Madeline Pryor try to reopen that portal by sacrificing her own son Nathan when he was a baby. But once again, you had the X-Men being able to stop her all over again. Now, the reason why this is all important because you have Belasco say, all right, Cable, I want to show you where we are right now. We are currently at the nexus of all realities. But right now, something is going to open up very soon that could possibly swallow the entire Earth. And the reason why, because the bad guy from X-Men Inferno is trying to reopen that portal once again. And of course, he is talking about Sim. The reason why Belasco needs Cable because Cable is technically magic and science. And y'all like, wait, what do you mean by that? Let me explain. So for Belasco, he realized that with Cable's techno-organic inside of him, that technically means that he is science. But for Cable, he's also the son to Madeline Pryor, who was the Goblin Queen. And so it's Belasco saying like, you're technically magic and also science, and you were also used in that ritual in X-Men Inferno. But either way, it's Belasco believing that Cable might be the key to close that portal before it opens up, and you have the forces of Limbo being able to go right back over to Earth once again. But while you have everyone talking to one another, you have Sim appear. Now, when Sim does appear, it's really more of him saying like, hey, listen, I am no longer scared of Belasco because when Belasco was the ruler of Limbo, Sim had to work for Belasco, but always tried to wait for the right time to hopefully get rid of Belasco and become the ruler of Limbo. But for Sim, he's technically that ruler, but also he's saying like, hey, I am no longer scared of you, Belasco. Like back then I was, but I have not seen in a very long time. things have changed a whole lot. And so you have Sim just being able to get rid of Belasco just like that. Now for Cable, it's now up to him to bring down Sim. Now, for Sim, he also wants Cable because if he's able to kill off Cable, that barrier goes away to allow the forces of Limbo to go over Earth. Now, this battle is very short lived because at first, you do have Cable believe that he should be able to take down Sim. You then have Sim fight back, and then really, it kind of looked like that maybe Cable will lose. But then you have Cable once again use his telekinesis to grab a stick and shove it right through the chest of Sim. Now, Sim is not dead, but he'll go away for a short period of time. And so, just like that, you have Cable defeat Sim like it was no big deal. With Sim being defeated, that technically means that Limbo and Sim are no longer a threat for the time being. And so you have Belasco send Cable and also Lee back to Earth. And really, you have Cable just body slide back to maybe his base. And the book ends on that note right there. And you're kind of like, okay, this storyline was a weird one. And so we're kind of left to wonder what could possibly happen down the road if Belasco or Sim reappear and once again go after Cable? But either way, this is where we're going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.